is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
.45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Danushka Madavala, read by Soundi Thavam. The Prime Minister instructs to draft legislation to protect action taken in good faith by public and semi-government servants. Permission granted to vaccinate school children. Minister of Transport Dilum Amunugama says that a few inter-provincial buses will be operated today. Experts in the education sector point out that many countries have used education for economic promotions. The Foreign Ministry has taken steps to collect and document information on Buddhist places of worship around the world. Resident Consul Generals of Sri Lanka are requested to mediate in obtaining foreign assistance for Sri Lanka. Paying of compensation for the fishermen affected by the fire on the Express Pearl ship will begin today. In world news, death toll mounts in South Africa's Zuma riots amid looting. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed the legal draftsmen to draft legislation to provide appropriate protection to the employees of public and semi-government institutions for the action taken in good faith in the performance of their duties. The Prime Minister gave these instructions during a discussion held at Temple Trees yesterday on providing relief to public and semi-public servants who have been subjected to political victimization. Accordingly, the Prime Minister directed that a committee, including a senior official of the Attorney General's Department, be appointed to assist in the drafting process and make those recommendations within a month. Secretary to the Prime Minister Gamini Senarath explained the purpose of providing relief to public and semi-public servants who have been subjected to political retaliation. Legal draftsman Mrs. Dilrukshi Samaravira and Solicitor General of the Attorney General's Department Mrs. Viveka Sirivardhana spoke on the action taken so far as per the Cabinet decision dated 27th November 2019. The Ministry of Public Service, Provincial Councils and Local Government has also taken steps to submit a draft Cabinet memorandum on the issuance of a circular to instruct the heads of establishments to identify the limitations that may permit officers to perform their duties in good faith beyond the legal framework and to make the necessary provisions for this purpose, Secretary J.J. Ratnasiri said. The special committee appointed to look into the possibility to vaccinate school children against the coronavirus has granted their permission in this regard. Secretary to the Ministry of Education, Kapila Pereira, said that it is expected to vaccinate at least a part of the students before the commencement of schools. The Secretary said that the vaccination of teachers and the non-academic staff is being carried out successfully. The Minister of Transport, Dilum Amunugama, says that a few inter-provincial buses will be operated today. These buses will be operated for the convenience of the people who travel between provinces for essential services. Meanwhile, the Railway Department says that 14 inter-provincial trains will be operated from today. Accordingly, trains will be operated from Colombo Fort to Kandy, Rambukana, Mahava and Shiloh. Trains will also be run between Maradana to Beliatta and Galle as well. The Dasa Desin Hathate program of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation recommences today. This program will be presented by the chairman of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, senior journalist Hudson Samarasinghe. This program will be aired through the Sinhala Commercial Service, City FM and all provincial services of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Experts in the education sector point out that many countries have used education for economic promotion. The US, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, Belarus, China and India are main among them. Nepal and Bangladesh have also used education for their economic growth. Therefore, local students have gone to Nepal and Bangladesh to study for medical degrees. There are 107 medical colleges in Bangladesh. 37 of them are government medical colleges, while the remaining 70 are private medical colleges. There are 6 medical colleges under the Ministry of Defence of Bangladesh. They pointed out that children of certain strong JVP members who protested against the Saitam and the Kotalabla universities have also studied at universities in the Western countries. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
The Foreign Ministry has taken steps to collect and document information on Buddhist places of worship around the world. The Foreign Ministry is focusing on expanding Sri Lanka's relations with Buddhist countries around the world through this program, which is being implemented on the instructions of Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. The minister is seeking the assistance and guidance of the chief prelates of Sri Lanka to make this program being implemented with the involvement of the government of Sri Lanka a success. The Foreign Minister requested the resident consul generals of Sri Lanka to mediate in obtaining foreign assistance for Sri Lanka, which has been affected by the COVID-19 epidemic. The minister made this request when the honorary consuls from the Philippines, Australia, Bulgaria, Seychelles, Ecuador and Poland residing in Colombo met the Foreign Minister at the Foreign Ministry on the 2nd of July. The minister said that since the government of Sri Lanka, with a non-aligned foreign policy, has been cooperating with foreign countries in a friendly manner, and it has made it easier to seek assistance from other countries, and requested them to coordinate the necessary activities to obtain assistance for the economic and business affairs of Sri Lanka. Allocating funds to pay compensation in the first round for the fishermen affected by the fire on the Express Pearl ship will take place today at the Ministry of Fisheries. Fishermen affected in the Gampaha, Colombo and Kalutara areas will be paid compensation. The central bank has so far received 720 million rupees in compensation for the damage caused by the fire on the Express Pearl ship, and 420 million rupees has been allocated for the fishermen on the instructions of the President. 1,413 new COVID-19 cases positive were identified yesterday. 1,404 among the group were identified as part of the New Year cluster, while 9 persons who arrived in the island from overseas also contracted the virus. Accordingly, Sri Lanka's coronavirus caseload increases to 277,519. Meanwhile, 1,328 individuals recovered from COVID-19 during the past 24 hours and were discharged, raising total recoveries to 247,569. 41 individuals were confirmed to have succumbed to the coronavirus during Sunday. COVID-19 related deaths in Sri Lanka accordingly rose to 3,574. That's local news.
Towards a new dimension in innovation, People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The ambassador of Vietnam in Colombo, Ho Thi Than Truc, paid a courtesy call on the State Minister of Regional Cooperation, Tharaka Balasuria, at the Foreign Ministry premises yesterday. While reiterating on the long-standing bilateral relations between the two countries, State Minister Balasuria noted that the main focus of the government of Sri Lanka is on economic development, tourism and building trade ties with countries in the Southeast Asian region. During the meeting, Ambassador Truc explained the steps taken by the Vietnamese government to introduce organic farming in Vietnam and express willingness to share these experiences with Sri Lanka. Currently, MOUs on agricultural development cooperation between the two countries are in full swing. Explaining the possibility of increasing the tourist arrivals from Vietnam, State Minister Balasuria highlighted that programs on Sri Lanka tourism in the Vietnamese language to be shared on social media can be facilitated to attract tourists from Vietnam. As a response, the Vietnamese ambassador highlighted the importance of establishing direct air connectivity between Sri Lanka and Vietnam to encourage tourism. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. Cabinet approval has been granted for the strategic plan of promoting the use of electric vehicles in Sri Lanka. Addressing the weekly media briefing, the co-cabinet spokesman, Minister Kelia Rambakwella, said attention was drawn to utilize renewable energy for vehicles since the immediate implementation of renewable energy projects is one of the foremost actions the government wants to take. It came to you in Watchlight, and moving on to a bulletin of world news. Making headlines, the death toll mounts in South Africa's Yuma riots amid looting. Lithuania votes to curb influx of migrants from Belarus. Reveal ransomware gang websites disappear from internet. The death toll in South Africa has risen to 72 after violence engulfed parts of the country after the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. This includes 10 people killed in a stampede during looting on Monday night at a shopping centre in Soweto. The BBC filmed a baby being thrown from a building in Durban that was on fire after ground floor shops were looted. The military has now been deployed to help the police overstretched since the unrest began last week. South African police said in a statement that they had identified 12 people suspected of provoking the riots and that a total of 1,234 people had been arrested. Lithuania has voted in favour of strict new migration laws amid an influx of arrivals from Belarus. Politicians backed the controversial legislation on Tuesday, allowing the mass detention of migrants and limiting their right to appeal. It comes as hundreds of migrants have illegally crossed into Lithuania from Belarus in recent weeks. Lithuania accuses Belarus of flying in foreign migrants who then head to the border, a claim Belarus denies. More than 1,700 people have been detained at Lithuania's border this year. The EU country has deployed troops and begun building a 340-mile razor wire along the border with Belarus, which is not a member of the bloc. Websites for a Russian-linked ransomware gang blamed for attacks on hundreds of businesses worldwide have gone offline. Monitors say a payment website and a blog run by Reveal Group became suddenly unreachable on Tuesday. The reason behind the disappearance is unknown, but has sparked speculation that the group may have been targeted deliberately by authorities. It comes amid growing pressure between the US and Russia over cybercrime. US President Joe Biden said he raised the issue with Vladimir Putin during a phone call on Friday after discussing the subject during a summit with the Russian president in Geneva last month. Back to the headlines of the world news. The death toll mounts in South Africa's Yuma riots amid looting. Lithuania votes to curb influx of migrants from Belarus. And Reveal ransomware gang websites disappear from the internet. That concludes this bulletin of world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
The Minister of Health, Pavitra Vanyarachi, says that 1.5 million doses of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine will be delivered to Sri Lanka from the United States next Friday. The vaccine stock will be delivered under the World Health Organization's COVAX facility. Accordingly, out of the 1.5 million doses of the Moderna vaccine, 750,000 will be given as the first dose, and the remaining 750,000 will be given as a second dose a month later, the Health Minister said, and came to you in Development News.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
On to sports news, it's tennis first. 20-time Grand Slam champion Roger Federer and British number one Joanna Konta have both pulled out of this summer's Tokyo Olympics. Federer, 39, has suffered a setback with an existing knee injury. The Swiss legend won doubles gold at Beijing in 2008 and silver in 2012, losing the singles final to Andy Murray. Konta, 30, has contracted COVID after withdrawing from Wimbledon when a member of her team tested positive and she was identified as a close contact. On to cricket. James Wynns hit his first international century as England pulled off an electrifying chase of 332 against Pakistan to complete a 3-0 clean sweep in the one-day international series. Wynns, so often criticised for his inconsistency, scored 102 of 95 balls as his side won by 3 wickets despite a supreme 158 by Pakistan's captain Babar Azam. After an action-packed start to their chase, England were 165 for 5 in the 24th over before Wynns put on 129 with Lewis Gregory to delight the raucous Edgbaston crowd. That's sports news. Business news up next.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Prices in the US spiked again in June, driven higher by the cost of used cars and food increasing. Consumer prices jumped 5.4% in the 12 months to the end of June, up from 5% the previous month. It marks the biggest 12-month increase since August 2008, according to the US Labor Department. Inflation, which measures the rate at which the cost of living increases, has been rising as the economy reopens from the coronavirus lockdowns. That's business news, economic news to follow.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
On to economic news, Sri Lanka's economy grew at a positive rate of 4.3% during the first quarter of this year, compared to a negative growth rate of 1.8% in the first quarter of 2020, the Census and Statistics Department said, releasing the GDP summary indicators for the first quarter of 2021. The Department of Census and Statistics released estimates of the gross domestic product at current price and at constant 2010 price in production approach and other macroeconomic indicators for the first quarter from January 1st to March 31st, 2021. The performance of the economy, even in the first quarter of 2021, was affected to some extent due to the spread of the second wave of the pandemic, which started in October last year, the department said in a communique. That's economic news.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
A few showers will occur in the Sabragamu and Western provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Fairly strong winds up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour are likely at times over the western slopes of the Central Hills and the western and southern provinces.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The Prime Minister instructs to draft legislation to protect action taken in good faith by public and semi-government servants. Permission granted to vaccinate school children. Minister of Transport Dilum Amunugama says that a few interprovincial buses will be operated today. Experts in the education sector point out that many countries have used education for economic promotions. The Foreign Ministry has taken steps to collect and document information on Buddhist places of worship around the world. Resident Consul Generals of Sri Lanka are requested to mediate in obtaining foreign assistance for Sri Lanka. Paying of compensation for the fishermen affected by the fire on the Express Pearl ship will begin today. And death toll mounts in South Africa's Zuma riots amid looting. That concludes this morning's news broadcast.